All right, Taurus. Taurus rising, Taurus moon, Taurus sun. You can look at this from really any place you want, but we are going to be giving a short dissertation on, from the a perspective of Taurus rising. So if you don't know that, it's very easy to find out. Feel free to ask if you don't know. Someone will tell you. We're all pretty kind here. 98.9%, 99.8% of us here are really good folks, so don't worry. If you don't know something and want to ask a question, someone will help, okay? So we're discussing a 2-year, 2025 to 2027, with the focus being Saturn, but we'll also touch on Uranus and Jupiter, a little bit of Vesta, and the lessons of Venus. So I think over these next 2 years, maybe there's a reason we said what we just said there, you know? Also, before you're reading, there was a message about, I saw a person in, like, bowing their head and kind of taking a moment, a quiet moment, and they were already in the middle of something, but they sort of stopped. And they were like, God, am I doing the right thing, was the question. The answer was basically yes, or the feeling was yes, but it was like, wait. Like, okay, am I supposed to be doing this? Yes. When do I commence or continue? And it's like, you may just need to wait, but not that long. Not all the time. Like, it's these short pauses that really help something. Now, luckily for you, this Saturn for the next 2 years is going to be sextiling you, which is a cooperative energy, right? It helps things, it aids things, it's a friendly, right? If you mix two charts together and there are a lot of sextiles, which are 60 degrees, right? Sex is 6 in Latin. That means that you'd really probably get along pretty easily, right? You wouldn't have to over-explain yourself too much. It's kind of like, to me, sextile is like 2 peas in a pod sort of energy. So that could also be of significance. Now, let's go over a few things date-wise. So this Saturn knocks on Pisces' door, and the door isn't locked because I don't feel like Pisces locks the door. It's an inviting place, right? And Saturn has the keys. I feel like he's the landlord to all the houses anyway. Like, I guess all the planets have keys, but Saturn has the master key. And he could come in even if you tried to lock it, you know. But I saw that the door was open. It's like, knock, knock, knock. And it's actually kind of like nighttime, or like the sun was going down. And they just come in and the lights are on and it's warm and there's different people in. There's actually a group of people in there. And Saturn's like, hey, how's it going? Well, then Saturn's going to be there for 2 years in Pisces house. When this happens on March 29th, which is also the day of the second eclipse that we're experiencing in March. And you can't really separate the two when they happen. But the point is that it's powerful. So on March 29th, again, when Saturn comes a knocking and just walks in, the moon will be there, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Neptune, the North Node, and then Saturn comes in. That's 7 planets in Pisces, in your Pisces, in all of our Pisces house. For you, Taurus rising, and that's the last time I'll say that from this point, from henceforth. Oh, remember that reading? Truth and honesty. You're ready? From henceforth, we will just be saying Taurus, okay? So I can conserve my energy. For you, Taurus, this will be in your 11th house. What's 11th house? Some say it's our goals and our wishes. It can be our larger groups of who we acquaint with. Like, for instance, us here, even though it's not physical, it's still a group, right? We're connecting. We come here and we gather. And then we go back out, right? But again, remember, Saturn stays there 2 years, right? Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, those will move on. So in the long run, ooh, that's interesting. No one's talked about this yet. Thank you. In the long run, and again, over the next 2 years, Neptune and Saturn live in the same house. And for you, again, that's your 11th house. Let's see about that. Oh, I love learning from you. You're such a treat to talk to. So inspiring. Do you have any planets in Pisces? That'll be significant to pay attention to. You could actually look at any of your mutable planets. But particularly Pisces, oh yeah, we're mentioning this because if you have any personal planets that in there, then those planets always live in that house and they never move. Right? It's like that's just the way it is. Maybe you want to think about your map kind of like that. Right? It's a neighborhood. Your natal planets, when you were born and where they are. I heard regardless of whether you're into progression. Like if you want to do that, okay. But to me, it's just showing like you in another dimension. You know what I mean? Anyway, the natal chart, those planets are always there. They just live there. It's like Janie and Charlie always live. Yeah, they've lived in that yellow house forever. You know, that kind of thing. Why can't I find this? Neptune and Saturn. Oh, I have to go to Saturn. Of course I do. Let's look at the conjunction because that is, right, conjunction means marriage, to conjoin. And when anything is in a house, in a general sense, we're talking about you're married. You live together. Again, it's a joining. So Neptune and Saturn. This says the power of this togetherness causes insecurity and a tendency towards depression. These individuals have to learn to trust in people and the world again, which is very interesting for the 11th. It says, in a previous lifetime, they suffered cruelty from others and now have a strong tendency to want to withdraw from society. They have an immense capacity to sacrifice themselves for others. So those of you who are natural givers, I heard that's your to-do, and I would say you're ruled by Venus, you probably do. I mean, do you give to everyone all the time? No, but you're always giving to somebody, all of you, right? Whenever you're connecting like that. So I actually see that this can create that tendency towards depression. So if you start to feel depressed, if you start to feel like, I can't trust anybody, I'm going to give up on all my dreams and all my goals. But this isn't a negative. This isn't, I'm going to give up my dreams and goals to God and then keep doing Saturn what I'm, to God, to the universe, Pisces, but then keep doing what I'm supposed to do, Saturn, even if that tests my insecurity. That's different than like, I fucking give up, you know, screw it, I can't do anything, I'm gonna just burn the bridge. You know what I mean? I heard don't do that. Now, we mentioned personal planets, right? In Pisces particularly. If you have a Pisces moon, you will be going through something called sadasati. I've experienced this myself. I have a more difficult moon than a Pisces moon, so I had a more extreme version of this lesson. That seems to be my life. Hi, life. I must have asked big on what I wanted to learn about. But I'll take it. I'll take it. Haven't died yet. So, although I will someday, and that's just the end of it. Maybe that's something to accept, or the subconscious is starting to accept. So if you have a Pisces moon, please just write Pisces moon. And I'll try to share some information or some thoughts on that. Because there are ways to alleviate it, not to completely block something like, okay, this doesn't feel comfortable to me. I don't feel completely at peace with this right now. Sometimes we're supposed to say thank you for that and not push it away. It's like accepting it. And then sometimes we have to realize where it's just like that mentioned in past lifetimes, right? Where you have been treated very cruelly by other people. That's probably why you're so gentle now. I mean, maybe you were treated cruelly in a past life because you were cruel, right? The opposite of you is Scorpio. You never know. But, or did something that you felt shame about. Interesting. So it's distinguishing the difference there. Now, in relation to your group activities or your group creativity, again, to me, this is also the house of community. This is a wider community, though, than, say, like third house, little community. I guess a person is looking at, do I walk the talk? And do they walk the talk in whatever you're trying to achieve? Because that's what tricks me up personally about the 11th house, is they say it's wishes and like your wishes and dreams coming true, that kind of thing. But they make it seem like that's about just you. But it's not. It can't be, because the 11th house is above the horizon, which means it's about and connects to, very much so, and can only be achieved with other people. So it's never a singular wish. So I guess a question, I guess some of you are wishing for community and probably have been blocked by that, but I feel like you still have it. It just, maybe it's at a distance. Maybe your soul family is sort of far away from you. That doesn't make the love any less, though. I mean, it's important to have that's okay. This is the thing. I think some of you have there's bigger like wishes and dreams, bigger things that you're really trying to do. But those aren't happening yet, or haven't happened yet. And so when a person, I feel like they get bummed out, and then it's like they kind of quit. But what they're actually wanting in that time is not, what they're actually wanting in that time is back to that third house of your little tight community, your neighborhood. So help where you are, right? Be a part of that some way, somehow. I heard even if you're a gypsy, it'd be like talking to the locals. You know, it would be keeping up with your friends, even if that's on the telephone. Interesting. Because Saturn is asking all of us what he's about, dedication and devotion also, right? And there was this message that came through one of the readings that I love that talked about how we're not supposed to use Mercury, but we're supposed to use Venus. And Ernest just talked about this recently, which is beautiful. Of course he did. He's so good. But where Mercury is about trying things, trying new things, experimenting, dating multiple people, changing your, what you're going to do, your definition of what you're doing in college or what have you. Venus, on the other hand, is it is dedication and devotion. Also, it's commitment, it's marriage. So that's going to be a really big one for all of us. And again, your focus is through some bigger dreams. So over the next 2 years, I see there's some really beautiful things that are going to be coming to you and kind of out of nowhere, but it's where you sort of give up in relation to a time frame. And the give up, again, is like to God. Again, I'm going to continue to believe that this is possible, but it's sort of inshallah, God willing. Now, of course, the people that we're surrounded by and what we connect to, that makes a big difference. Some of you could be looking for an organization that's actually sort of like spiritual, but with structure. I also sense that you already have that, though. Again, even if it's because Neptune is sort of distance, Pisces is space. Right? Think about how big the ocean is. Pisces is space. Saturn he causes restrictions on things because he needs space. He's just saying, look, I need this much. Oh, interesting. All right, okay. So on March 17th, 2025, so they say, Uranus finally shifts astronomically from Aries constellation to you, Taurus. And particularly Taurus rising, this is going to hit an angle for you. So there's going to be some big changes with you, which is actually would sort of be the ruler of modernity of the 11th house also. Interesting. So I heard something's happening behind the sidelines that you may know about it. But the point is when a planet is transiting over one of your angles, they call it the cross of matter. We did a reading on this on Patreon with Janis Joplin as an example. It was awesome. I love her. But whenever a planet transits over these angle points, your MC, your ascendant, your descendant, your IC, Ilium Colii, it really shifts some things. It's like I was just telling Gemini, it's like the round peg goes in the round hole. And then all of a sudden that mechanism starts to turn. And for you, it's fixed energy. I mean, for all of us, we'll be doing this, but particularly you are one of the angles. All the fixed sign are going to feel this, even though this is larger, of course, collectively. But we also need to distinguish these kinds of things. And maybe that's what's going on with Saturn, is like, when I'm looking down at self-sacrifice and then responsibility, there's a difference between these two things, right? So that happens in March, and then in May 2025, Jupiter moves out of your sign, out of your first house into your second house. So some of you could be doing very well with money, or there's something where something comes in to be of service that helps you realize that you have something that you need. Now, of course, I see the undercurrent was especially the last 2 years, 2 to 4 years specifically. That has to do with Jupiter. That has to do with Saturn. Is I heard knowing that you're going to be okay, even if you were all by yourself. That you're okay with being by yourself. Now, I know some of you here, there are some Tauruses that don't date, right? You guys are not into it. But regardless of that, like, you could be married with children, but like when you were just with yourself, do you, are you comfortable with that? Do you know that? And I assume most of you here are, are there, or you'll get there if you're not there yet. Now, I would definitely save your money. If you get a bunch of money, I would not just spend it because you have it. That's very easy for Taurus. Because Jupiter is actually in a uncomfortable place there. It doesn't think, it's like a double, you want to really double think, double ask, like, do I need that? Because again, Saturn is walking the talk. You know, maybe some of you, there's something that you haven't been able to do in a wider collective sense or a bigger dream of yours because of perhaps finances. And if that's the case, then I see that that could be resolved. And again, this may be a year or two working. Hey, they're just making boundaries. It's fine. They're animals. Because I feel like you had to feel worthy of it. Now, some of you could have already received this because you work ahead. I heard you work ahead of astrology like me. Although it happens now presently too. So again, if something has already happened like this, like we're talking about, it's going to happen again. And maybe you may be getting more into, somebody may be getting more into gadgets. I wouldn't buy a bunch of gadgets. I feel like right now, and this is weird, it's coming through, but like, I feel like people are gonna, you know, put out a new iPhone, put out a new TV, put out this kind of, like, you know, it's like a fad thing, and it changes too much. So it's almost like, you know how you have those old, I mean, I still think they're cool and they work fine, but like those old point and shoot cameras, you know, like digital cameras, like most people don't have that anymore. You know, it's like it went out of style. The process of it changed. So hold on. There's a Leo family member. So it's an Aquarius family member that's very significant. Now this Uranus thing is also showing me, especially you Taurus rising again. See, I'm specifying. It's because I don't want to be misunderstood. It's fine. It reminds me of when we talked about Uranus and Taurus before, and it was like the cows usually, the cattle are generally in a field. There's space, but like if you go to the, if you want to explore enough, you're going to find the edges. And it's like this used to be an electric fence. The cow just wouldn't go by. That's the way I was seeing Uranus and Taurus. But it's almost as if the electricity goes out and the cow, if you're near the edge, because I guess the cow's kind of slow, if you're near the edge, then once that comes down, because the cow doesn't like bang into the electric fence and be like, oh, is that electric? The cow's not dumb. It knows, it can feel it before it even gets there. Like, all right, I can't go through this right now. If I do, I'll hurt myself. It's unnecessary. I have what I need here. But the interesting thing is I feel like, again, the electricity goes out when Uranus enters into Taurus. And it's like, again, if folks are closer to the edge, and I guess this is an expansion perhaps, they've expanded to this other stage, then this other place, then they can just walk over that. Because I feel like the electric fence is going to come back up and it's going to kind of separate people. Does that make sense? Or separate the cows? So I heard, what are you doing alone and for yourself? Because what I'm seeing is like sometimes when there are cows that are together, it's like, hey, you want to go explore over here? And they're like, yeah. And like all the cows, this group of cows like goes over here. And then when that comes down again, they can all go over. But I saw a situation where it's just you as like one cow, also. And then you go over that, and I see that he comes across the cow comes across the fox. So, but the thing is when that fence comes up, the cow's gonna know I can't go back where I was, because if I did, it would hurt me. Does this make sense? I heard I have to be where I am, and it's okay to explore. And you are in a forest too. I see lots of trees around you. It's daytime. A little bird, little songbird, there's little songbirds on like the top of the flying through the top of the trees. So this is fine. So in the beginning, I guess that's another thing too. In the beginning of this for you, and maybe for a little while, right? Jupiter is going to be in your second house 1 year from May 2025 on. Saturn will be in your 11th house 2025 till 2027 June. And then Uranus will be in your first house for 7 years. Right? 2025 to 2032. So the beginning of this situation, and again, it could be the next year or two, maybe that's what we were talking about before. Maybe this is where you explore. Those cows will explore the ones that were near the edge. The ones in the middle that didn't want to move, I don't know. I can't like make that do anything, and I'm not seeing it do anything else. It's kind of like, remember, there's three levels to every zodiac, right? There's exploratory ones. There's like, out there ones. There's it's kind of like confident, and then there's insecure part. I'm kind of extra passive, unnecessarily extra passive. And then there's the middle, which is sort of assertive. And I feel like the cows that are going to the edge are like on the assertive, outward. I heard nothing wrong if you want to stay in the middle. And if you want to stay where you are, I guess you can, but I honestly think that Uranus is going to shift you no matter what. Because remember, as this touches an angle, which Uranus is about, huge change, then this is going to affect where you live, your family, other people in general. This could be your partner, it could be who you work with. I heard even people that don't like you, although with the Leo, they'll be going away, the South Node there. But this also affects your job. But don't worry, you don't have to change all of these things at once. Maybe you want to check in where you've already been ahead of the game and you've already changed these things. And then check in whether those changes were potentially temporary. Because this whole Uranus and building up to Uranus and Taurus, to me, is all about accepting the fact that like some decisions, dedications, and devotions are only for a particular time frame. Marriage, for instance, say someone's like, I'm going to marry you. The rules around that game initially, and what people are agreeing to, is till death do us part. That's the time frame. right? But we could be dedicated and devoted to, I'm seeing someone building a house for somebody, or like building, I see people building a house. That's the point. There's like lumber. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be dedicated to building this house. That has, that time frame can swell and stretch, right? You may want to may want to get it done in spring to fall, but it may be a little longer than that. Because not everything is forever, because we're dedicated and devoted to it, but we were supposed to know what we are dedicated and devoted to, and maybe what are the rules now around it. Because I'd say with Uranus and Taurus, for you specifically, it's like I'm seeing a bunch of people play cards, like they're about to play cards, and they all know the game. They all know the game. It's a basic game. It's a fun game. It's not too hard. It's more, again, it's a good time. But anyway, so it's like you got house rules, you know? You got your own house rules. You know, I heard, I play like this. And someone's like, oh, cool, I like that. Yeah, I can, all right, yeah, cool house rule. We'll go with that. But you wouldn't know if people are on the same page unless, I guess, you share with them. This could be getting really serious with your healing practices, your spiritual circles. I almost could see that there's a split, and this is weird. I'm seeing a split in spirituality. Maybe it's kind of like those 3 levels we talked about, right? Because there's spirituality, there's religion, although that is, I mean, we're making a bridge here. It's the same, it's similar, but people define these differently. But with Saturn there, it's like he's creating a bridge between spirituality and religion. Which, if we use that word, you know, say someone's, I exercise religiously. That means you do it regularly. It's important to you. It defines, in a way, who you are. Maybe it's just easier to talk about who you are. Maybe with that past life thing too, it might be where some are afraid to say where they are or what they're wanting, because when they told other people at some other point, maybe they downed it or they took it away from you. Or blatantly, for some of you, like, had enemies that tried to block that. I mean, however you want to look at karma, but because Pisces is a little loosey-goosey. Oh, I just realized why people say that. They're talking about goose shit. That isn't the way I see Pisces. But the loosey-goosey is because goose shit is really slippery. And you only need a little bit of it. And it's like, boop! It'll pick you right up in the air. You know, it's hard to put your feet on the ground. I guess that maybe that's why they're saying loosey-goosey. But Saturn wants us to be grounded there. I heard that, is it TLC? What about your friends? Oh, that Worthy reading. Will they stand their ground? Will they mess around? Yeah, yeah. It's a really good dance and jam. And I do think you're concerned about that. Person's concerned about that. You know, if maybe some of you, for instance, just need to be more punctual, regular, have a bit of more regularity to when you're doing things or how you show up. I mean, I guess organizations or large groups of things are already established, right? So maybe if some of you are wanting to create something like that, I'm even seeing like nonprofit kind of energy. Like if you're wanting to create something of this larger sort of communal um, stature, then maybe you want to go be a part of one that already exists, and maybe in that realizing going to this thing that is already Saturn established, or being a part of it, volunteering, what have you, it's like you may recognize how something really works and maybe what you would do different, right? And I see again house rules, because that may fulfill it, right? Because a person may, I feel like a person may be saying to themselves like, I haven't done this yet, but other people already have. And that's okay, because what they have done, now you can be a part of it if you want to. It's not necessarily for all of you right now, like creating your own, or that's how you get to. Because remember, the wish is not my wish, just something that's about me. It's about how does this connect to everybody? How does this connect to the wider place? Does this make sense? This came in Gemini's reading too, but and this is sort of a prediction, although I've already kind of seen it. It's going to happen regardless, but I actually see the next 2 years. I think like tarot readings or that kind of, the popularity of that may diminish, or people may start being more selective and recognizing like where people have egos and like why they're doing things, and sort of like being even able to intuitively pick up like, do people practice what they preach? Do you know what I mean? Now, we're not expecting other people to be ultimately perfect, but it's kind of like, right, Saturn Pisces, do we walk the talk? Especially with that South Node going through Leo, it's definitely going to pull, I'm seeing like TikTok where it has like 100,000 views, in an hour. It's that kind of thing, but it's about, it's like, is it really helping? But that's another story and a little bit wider. Right, because Vesta is dedication and devotion. She's in Scorpio across from you, opposing you until September 2025, which actually also represents like your spiritual groups of people, the other people in your lives. This may happen more as we move forward too. I'm seeing the energy of summer, like the sun is very bright. Vesta represents a larger, it's mostly women, and then like a few selective men. That's the group, if you will. So again, I see the spiritual groups that you are already a part of, and I'm not talking about wide ones. This is more like where it's intimate. There may not be a lot of people in comparison, like we said, like million views, or like they're. I'm seeing someone with like plaques on the wall. We're talking about Vesta is an intimate space. So is Saturn. So is Venus. Do we talk about Saturn is in Pisces is also being of service, helping those in need? Say maybe you want to think about your wishes. And maybe even in like a worldly sense. Like say someone was just like, I wish no one was going hungry. It's like, okay, maybe this larger community, you find an organization where you can go work at a soup kitchen, you can go volunteer at a soup kitchen, or where you can go through your cupboards because you are blessed and give food. Maybe it's like, I wish people weren't, people had homes and people weren't homeless. It's like, well, when you're out in public, help a homeless person. Again, and if it's not the person directly, you'd want to find an organization that's helpful for that. And it could just be money. But I heard don't brag about it. Don't tell people what you're doing because it'll kind of, well, I just see that. Because Saturn is humble and so is Pisces. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be financial. It can also just be your time and energy. Let me see. Oh, did we talk about, since the foundation of this reading was Saturn, the inspiration was Saturn? Saturn rules over 2 houses in all of our maps, right? Over he's the king of Capricorn and the king of Aquarius. He rules over these domains. So, as an undercurrent, Taurus, your 9th house, 10th house, and 11th house are all highlighted. So that top quarter triangle of your map is all highlighted. And so it may be helpful, especially in the beginning of this, to reference the last 2 years, to reference the last 4 years. Now, depending on how old you are, Saturn also hasn't been in this place for you for 30 years. Okay? So it may not, I heard, have a direct relevancy when you reference to that place, but maybe you want to think about who you were or what you believed in then and how that affects or has helped create your faith and wisdom now. Because Saturn's about I'm seeing the Saturn in Pisces again as where you're just meant to meditate on this 11th house. For those of you who've moved a lot, think about the 11th place you ever lived. If you haven't moved a lot in your life, I feel like you want to count something to 11. Like maybe it's jobs, or maybe you jump from friends to jobs to this to that. It's like whatever, name 11 things. That's also an exercise. I want to remember that for myself. Hold on. You know, without thinking too much. All right, I'm going to say that's good. You don't need to be reminded, like Gemini, about sticking to what you do and finishing what you do before you move on. You already know that. That's built into you like clockwork, right? Okay. It went quiet, so I'm going to say that's that. I hope this was helpful, Taurus. Thank you for being here. Feel free to share your thoughts. Maybe some of you have already gone through this. Yep. And I'll talk to you next time. Peace out.